Good evening, everyone. Oh, I just realized that I have the sound on and I need to turn that off. Oh my goodness, go away. Oh, I haven't had that happen since the early days. How are you? How are you? Um, Today's been kind of an anxious day for me. Here, there we go. Today's been kind of an anxious day for me, and I hope you will indulge me because I'd like to talk a little bit just about some stuff that's been going on. I will do my best not to go on at length. But anyway, something just happened about 15-20 minutes ago. This is a positive, by the way. I'll get to the other bit later. But about 15-20 minutes ago, I left a comment on a professor's page. And unbeknownst to me, this comment that I left, while well-meaning, contained information that this person didn't wish to have publicly available. And so immediately they left me a really wonderful message saying, hey, I really appreciated what you had to say, but there's some stuff in there that I'm not really keen to have available on my Facebook wall, so I deleted it. I hope you understand. And of course, I was really grateful that they told me this because now I know. And one of my pet phrases is boundaries communicated through loving empathy is fertile ground for lasting relationships. And I'd seen some other stuff. I guess it was earlier today or the day before, very recently, about having the courage to talk about your boundaries with the people around you, whether you're close to them or otherwise. Personally speaking, I'm always really grateful when people are willing to tell me this stuff, because then I can, modify my approach and all of that. I tend to be a pretty blunt person, so I appreciate bluntness when it comes from others. If you can dish it out, but you can't take it, then you should change your approach. And I'm always grateful when people are direct with me. And having said that, it reminded me of a time, a lifetime ago. I used to be a server, which was a job that I really loved. I did well at it, and I really enjoyed it. It brought me a lot of fulfillment. And a team who was a pretty soft-spoken, gentle guy. Well, I am neither soft-spoken nor gentle, and I know that I'm a person who elicits strong reactions from people. I recognize this. There was one day where he just let me have it. There was one day when he just got really, really upset with me. I don't even remember what over. But I just remember feeling really, honored, to be honest. Truly, even in that moment, feeling very honored, because I felt like when he, I don't want to say got in my face, because that's a misrepresentation of what he did. Because he was very professional, but he was very, very, angry, actually. He was angry. He was very angry and frustrated. And I even remember saying thank you, because I felt like in that moment, I felt like I understood him better. I felt, because this was somebody who was not histrionic in any way, shape, or form. He was not someone who was prone to outbursts. He was very careful about what he did. And so in that moment, I felt very privileged that he was very honest with me. This isn't always the case, obviously, when someone gets upset with you, because it's very difficult to deal with chaotic anger. That's to me, that's the most frightening thing ever. Chaos. I don't care for it. But anyway, just moving forward, I wanted to talk a little bit about what Atheist Advent means. Actually, before I do that, just a second. I'm getting some warning messages, which is driving me crazy. Just a quick second. This is the fun of live streaming. You get to go in and do surgery while you're actually broadcasting. Hold up. I'm so sorry. There we go. Okay, so we're good. All right, anyway. Excuse me. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what Atheist Advent actually means. Up till now, I'm going to close this window. Up till now, I've sort of said, oh, Atheist Advent, it's just a fun term. But earlier today, I was thinking a little bit about what that actually meant, and I wonder if there are other people in my position, other atheists who share the same tradition. I grew up in the church. My father is a minister from a long line of ministers, and accordingly, Christmas is tricky for me. Over the years, starting in around college, Christmas started to become quite tricky for me because Erma Bombeck once said, "There is nothing sadder." This is a paraphrase. This is not a direct quote. It's close, though. There's nothing sadder than waking up on Christmas morning and not being a child. And so Christmas has been kind of tricky for me. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what that means, Atheist Advent. I grew up a quite strong Christian. It wasn't an act. I meant it. It was something that I felt deep within me. And traveling from Christianity to atheism was not an overnight thing. It started around the time, about my second semester of college, so 2000. It lasted from the time I was 18 till the time I was 25. And so it wasn't just something where I just woke up one day and I was like, I don't believe in God anymore. It's not quite that simple. And accordingly, over the years, as I say, Christmas has been quite tricky because, even though I'm an atheist, I still prefer all of the sacred Christmas songs, and I have a great love of the traditions that I grew up with, because the reality of the situation is, what we need to be honest about is that Christmas, as we understand it as Americans, I cannot speak to any other country, I cannot speak to any other tradition in the world, so I'm not for 1 minute speaking above my station. But Christmas, as we understand it, is a pagan holiday with a Christian overlay, and I am not trying to start a thing like that. But this is undeniable fact. Decorating Christmas tree, giving out cards, all of that business. It's just not, there's nothing intrinsically Christian about it. So Christmas is tricky because it is, for all intents and purposes, a pagan holiday. And Advent, though, I will say Advent is something about the season that is distinctly Christian, and something that I grew up with, and something that, on reflection, is something I really valued. Of course, this is the way it always is when you're younger. You don't really understand what you have until you don't have it anymore. So I don't know how well I valued it at the time. But a time to come together and light the candles and have a time to be together as a family and just read. This is the first time in 22 years that this is anything that I've observed, because I never knew how. And I do wonder if there are other people who, well, I don't want to say lost their faith, because that sounds tragic. I don't believe in God anymore. I don't. I haven't believed in God in quite a long time. And, I think it's empirically proven that December 25th is not the direct calendar date that Jesus, if you believe he existed. And again, I'm not going to start that. But let's face it, it's a tricky time. Especially if perhaps you're like me, I'm single by choice and childless by choice, and the holidays can be quite an isolating time. And especially, I am, from a family of committed Christians, and I do not feel isolated one bit artificially from my family in that way. I've not been excluded in any way whatsoever. So I'm not going down that road. Although perhaps there are lots of people who couldn't say the same. So I said I wasn't going to go on long, but I don't seem to be able to have that. So I will simply say that Atheist Advent, as I've designated it, is my way of laying claim to admittedly a Christian tradition, but making it perhaps something that we can perpetuate. Just coming together, being together, especially now, coming together and just enjoying a good book. And that's it. There's no agenda. Having said that, there is something that I found on YouTube. It was a couple weeks ago. I'm curious to know what you think. I never believed in Santa. And I should say, even though I grew up in a Christian home, my parents never deterred us from Santa. My dad was quite good at keeping that going. But, it was just something I never believed in. And of course, now at 39, I'm considering the irony of the fact that I wouldn't believe in Santa, but I believed in God. That's a whole other discussion. Nevertheless, there was a news report. I think this is from about 4 years ago. I won't give it any introduction because I don't think it needs one. But I believe firmly that whether you are a Christian or an atheist or name it, any other religion, I believe that the one unifying thing about Christmas that can unify all religions, all people of any belief, regardless of what you have, is it is a time to reclaim childhood and to celebrate childhood. And this is what I want to share with you.
Kids look at things completely different. He was more concerned about missing Christmas than he was of dying. For us, it's completely ridiculous. Not for them, They haven't fathomed yet what dying really is all about, So, when I got there, my job was to make sure that he got Christmas, And that's got to be happy and it's got to be a fun time, Hard to do when your family members are they're in a bad way right now, And to try to tell him, look, I got to be the happy guy. I got to be the guy that goes in there and makes him feel like he's number one and all that kind of stuff. Now, if you're going to lose it, excuse me, he says, please step out of the room, go out in the hallway and cry or whatever, Afterwards, I'll sit out there, I'll cry with you, But I can't have you doing that here, So if you think you're going to lose it, just leave the room, But until then, you're fine, So I walk in there, and the mother had given me a gift to give to him, something he was always wanting, Paw Patrols, So I walk in, and he is just kind of looking like he's about ready to fall asleep. He's just so tired and drained, And I turned around and looked, and there was nobody else in the room with me. They all stayed in the hallway, Now, and as you know, in ICUs, you don't have much doors. You don't have walls. You have glass. Everybody can see what's going on, So I could still see him out there, and that was bothering me. So I kind of went up on the table or on the bed with him and sat down with my back towards the windows, And all he can do is you have to start off that jolly voice, that kind of stuff, Since, what's this I hear you're going to be missing Christmas this year? Yeah, you tell me I'm dying. Really? Well, you're not going to miss Christmas. Y'all's already had your present already made. We knew you wanted this for a long period, for a long time. And he's like, really? Yeah, sure. And I got it right here for you. And brought it up to him, and he could barely unwrap it, you know. So I helped him. And he saw the Paw Patrols, and that put a grin on his face, you know, and he kind of laid back in the pillow. And he just kind of looked at me and says, no. He says, they tell me I'm dying. He says, you know, he just kind of looked like he had that look on his face, like he wasn't really grasping it, you know. And I'm like, can you do me a favor? And he goes, sure. But he was just like that, you know, sure, you know, that kind of thing. He says, you get up those pearly gates, you just tell them you're Santa's number one elf. You're like, I am? You sure are. They'll let you in. I'm sure they'll let you right in. He goes, they will? I said, I know it. So he just came up and gave me a big hug. I had a hold of him, and he just kind of looked up at me and he says, Santa, can you help me? And that's when he passed.
I'm really grateful that when I do these broadcasts, I can't hear the audio because I've watched that video a lot of times. I'm very sorry to be a Debbie Downer, but the reality of the situation is this holiday it's more than Christian tradition. It's more than any of us. It's a time when people feel extremely disconnected and lost, and I think that this year is going to be the hardest one ever because I don't think there's anybody who doesn't already feel disconnected. That's the fact. I certainly do. Which is why I'm doing this right now, however virtually. Anyway, so I'm not really good at segues, so here we are. Here we are celebrating childhood together. Here we are, fourth night of Advent. And I shall begin. So, once again, reading from Erma Bombeck. Let's lift the mood a little bit, shall we? As Yogi Berra once said, it was déjà vu all over again. One child was throwing plates on the table like a Greek dancer, and one was standing in front of the refrigerator with both doors parted like the Red Sea, whining, "There's nothing to eat!" He was joined by his brother, who said, "You don't know hunger until you're the last kid to leave home. Do you have any idea what I got when all you left?" Every container in the house had a stalk of wheat in it. There was imitation eggs, yogurt cultures multiplying and dividing in the refrigerator like a bad Japanese film, and Civil War milk, blue or gray. "Poor baby," said his sister. "Tell us again how you drove a car to school at 16 just to keep the battery charged for the old folks." "They are so health conscious," he continued. "They actually bought sugar-free laxatives. Can you believe that? What do they think I was going to do with it? Pour over ice cream and pig out?" "Get out the violins." "The minute you guys came home for a visit, it's a Pillsbury Doughboy festival." "Is he deprived or what?" said his brother. "You never had to use old encyclopedias where the most recent president was Harry S. Truman," he continued. "And we didn't get a watch for our 12th birthday either," said his brother. "Just sit on it. Lighten up. Give it a rest and help set the table. That's women's work. I'm telling. Mom!" The voices were deeper, the bodies were larger, but the dialogue was from the mouths of the same people who were at the same dinner table 15 years ago. It was a performance staged especially for parents. Next to Chorus Line and O Calcutta, it enjoyed one of the longest runs in the history of modern theater. It was all coming back to me. "Mom, make her stop." said a voice flatly, which, by the way, is not at all how I read it. I'll try it again. Mom, make her stop, said a voice flatly. The silence was still deafening. Make her stop what? Humming. I don't hear anything. You never hear it. She's humming just so no one can hear it but me. I leaned over, my hair resting on her lips, and listened. Nothing. Look at her neck, her brother commanded. You can see it moving. I felt her neck to see if the veins were warm. Then I commanded her to stop. Did she do it? I asked my son. He smiled triumphantly. Sibling rivalry was invented by psychoanalyst Alfred Adler in the early 1920s. Up until that time, parents used words like, they're killing one another, and for God's sake, Larry, don't turn your back on them. Adler said it was a phase children went through in which they competed for their parents' attention. They had it. They just didn't know it. As the silence of the table returned, I said to the baby, why don't you say a prayer before dinner? The other two exchanged knowing glances like the first two cuts in the Miss America pageant. He bowed his head and began, Bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts, which we are about to receive from the brownies. Not brownies, dork, interrupted his brother. You mean bounties. Bounties is something you get for bringing in an outlaw, said his sister. No, you're thinking of the ones who bring in prisoners in Canada. They're Mounties. You're thinking of Monty, which was a nickname for General Montgomery during the Big War, said their father. Monty, said their daughter. They were the sisters who wrote Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre. That's Bronte, I said. I thought Bronte made chicken, he said. Jerk, that's Swanson, said his brother. No, that's Colonel Sanders, the man with the little white beard and the white suit. You are obviously thinking of Mark Twain. Wrong, said their father. It was Mark Clark, and he was not a colonel, but a general during the Big War. Is he related to Dick Clark, said our son. Who's Dick Clark? Maybe he's related to Petula Clark. What's a Petula? Isn't it like a cuspidor? That's a tooth, like a molar. A mole is a little animal that ruins your grass. No, it isn't. It's a little dot on your face that you were born with. That is a wart, and it's something icky that boys hate but always wind up with. There was a silence for almost 10 seconds when a small voice said, That's what I said in the first place. Bless these gifts which we are about to receive from the brownies. Sibling rivalry in our family began the first day I brought our second son home from the hospital. His brother looked at him and said, Maybe later we can get a dog. The rivalry was subtle at first, like he'd stand on the baby's windpipe or trap him under the casters of the playpen. At the grocery, he pushed his cart into a blank wall and left him. What's with you and your brother, I'd asked. He's dumb. He doesn't do anything. He just slobbers and eats the labels off of cans. It never got any better. When he stopped slobbering, he began to spit. When we got his mouth fixed, his nose started to run. When he walked, he stumbled. When he sat down, he got something wet. Even breathing became annoying. When children are born, they come equipped with a computer bank that files away every kindness or gift ever rendered and the age it was rendered. Heaven help the parent who gives one child a bicycle a year sooner than his brother or sister got one, or rewards him with a trip to the circus before the exact hour the others receive their first trip to the circus. The parents aren't totally blameless. I can't think of a mother in this entire world who has not committed the first sin of parenting, comparing her children. From the day kids are born, we compare them with ourselves, their siblings, their contemporaries, and every other child with whom they come in contact. They are smaller than their brother when he was at that age. They are dumber than their sister in math, lazier than the boy next door, don't catch a baseball like their dad, and their hair doesn't hold the curl like their mother's. One day my younger son said, Why do you always compare me to my brother? Because you're a cheap shot, I said. I wish I was an only child. Wouldn't matter, I said. When I was carrying your brother, I compared him to a baby my best friend was carrying. Hers moved more than your brother did. Near the end of the meal, one of them kicked another one under the table. When I asked why, he said he knows. When I asked he, I was told he's lying. When I told him to stop it, he said, "You let him yell ee at me all the time and never said a word." It went back and forth like that until the end of the meal. I told one of them to go to his room. He said, "Sure, he's Mama's favorite." He was right. Every mother had a favorite. I had mine. It was always the child who was too sick to eat the ice cream at his birthday party, had measles at Christmas, and wore leg braces to bed because he toed in. She was the fever in the middle of the night, the asthma attack, the child in my arms at the emergency ward. My favorite child was the one I punished for lying, grounded for insensitivity to other people's feelings, and informed was a royal pain to the entire family. The favorite child said dumb things for which there were no excuses. He was selfish, immature, bad-tempered, and self-centered. He was vulnerable, lonely, unsure of what he was doing in the world, and quite wonderful. The one I loved the most was the one I watched struggle, and because the struggle was his, did nothing. Every mother knows her favorite child was the one you deserved. Every mother knows her favorite child was the one who deserved love the least, but needed it the most. As parents sit and listen to this exchange between siblings at the dinner table, they cannot help but reflect on the dazzling performance. But then, the kids have enjoyed a long run with it. No one asks for an encore, but you get one anyway, as they spring into their "it's not my turn to do dishes." Their freshness never ceases to amaze me. If a poll were taken of children asking why they thought their parents had children, 12% of them would say they got bored watching television. 26% would say it was a 4-H project that got out of hand, and 62% would swear adults had kids to get out of doing their own dishes. Despite the fact that 15 million Americans walk around half sick from eating off diseased dishes and breakage runs into 6 figures, it is still the number one chore of kids in the country today. Early in my mothering career, I saw what I had going for me. A surly child who secretly spit on plates after she rinsed them, laying a foundation of mistrust. A child with kidneys the size of lentils who visited the bathroom 5 times during the clearing ritual, and another one who argued about it not being his turn for so long the dishes went out of style and the silver pattern was discontinued. When electric dishwashers came out, I figured it would do for my family what my pantyhose did for my condo thighs. Pull them together as one. The day the dishwasher was installed marked the first time my children fought. Yes, fought. To see who would load it first. The second night, the one who used to spit on the plates opened the door of the dishwasher and said, "How do you expect me to clear the table when there are dishes in there from yesterday?" I had an answer. She did not like it. No one said anything about emptying the dishwasher. She said, "I just fill it." Had this child been a steward on the Titanic and someone asked her for a life preserver, she would have said, "I'm sorry, but this is not my station. I work on the aft deck." I cannot put my finger on it, but there was just something yucky about touching all those squeaky clean plates and sparkling pieces of silverware and returning them to the drawers and cupboards that turned kids off. They just didn't want to get their hands clean. I've been emptying the dishwasher ever since we got it. As I do it, I cannot help but reflect on why I had children. What a thing to say. I had them because I would carry my genes and give me everlasting life. They would fill my life with joy and purpose and give meaning to my very existence. On the other hand, German Shepherd puppies can lick a dish clean in 30 seconds without moving the plate, and they're real pleasant while they're doing it. I don't understand it. The kids sit there all during dinner and never mention dishes. The conversation is light. Then one starts with something as subtle as, "Boy, I got a lot of homework tonight. The rest of you can sit here and talk if you want." He begins to leave the table. "You leave the table," says another sibling, "and I'll break your face." "It's not my turn to do dishes." The other one hops in. "It's not my turn. I didn't eat anything, so I'm out." The first one says, "We can figure this out very simply. I did them Tuesday because we had spaghetti. I always get stuck doing them when we have spaghetti because Mom never liked me." "Get off my case," says another cast member. "You haven't done them in 3 weeks because of ball practice. You don't even play ball. You just suit up and sit in the shower room to get out of doing chores." That's a pretty rotten thing to say for That's a pretty rotten thing to say for someone who lets the dog help him clear. You think we haven't seen you? At least I don't leave the broiler in the oven, the pan soaking in the sink, and save empty corn cobs in the refrigerator. It's the end of the first act. Parents give them a sitting ovation. In my naivete, I always thought a family doing dishes together built character. I perceived it as a sharing experience where everyone pitched in and made it a better world. This myth exploded the night we took a steak knife away from one of the boys who said it wasn't his turn and was using his brother as a dartboard. We moved right along to Plan B, in which each of them would have his night in the kitchen and then be off for 2 nights. However, there was so much trading and paying back that the bookkeeping became unwieldy, and we moved to a new house to start fresh. We called the kids the 3 S's. Each had his own personality in the kitchen. One was a soaker. Everything soaked. The only thing that wasn't put in the sink and filled with water was the spaghetti pot, which always looked clean and hung with spaghetti hardened on it for 3 years. One was a saver. No leftover was too small to store in its original serving dish. A grape, a French fry, a wad of gum left on the dinner plate. All were preserved for whoever was on for dishes the next night. The other one was a slammer, a one-person wrecking crew who could demolish a table in 30 seconds. She cleared, she stacked, she washed, she dried, she put away. All of this in 15 seconds and at great expense to the management. All 3, however, had one trait in common. The moment the meal was over, a biological urgency would come over them, and they would disappear into the bathroom until they were told the food on the plates was in a solid state. It was a game they played. Would Mom sigh her martyrdom sigh and say, "Never mind, I'll do them myself"? And when they emerged from the bathroom, the kitchen would be sparkling and the kitchen's done? Or would Mom fake them out, and they would be in the kitchen giving a primetime performance to no one? It was an act that was always held over, yet to this day, they can't hear a dish rattle without instinctively going into the bathroom and locking the door. In retrospect, it was only a matter of time before the family dinner hour passed into history and fast foods took over. I knew its days were numbered the day our youngest propped my mouth open with a fork and yelled into it, "I want a cheeseburger and 2 fries and get it right this time." I just didn't serve meals with show business pizzazz. My pot roast gave way to pizza, served in a derby hat and cane. My burgers couldn't compete with the changing numbers under the golden arches. I couldn't even do chicken right. So, day by day, I watched the family go outside of the home for meals, where there were no tables to set and no clean hands required, and where green was not considered a happy color. The warm smells of Mother's kitchen gave way to the back seat of a station wagon littered with supermarket flyers, dry cleaning, school books, ropes, chains, jumper cables, and dog hairs. The old rules for eating at home, sit up straight, chew your food, and don't laugh with cottage cheese in your mouth, didn't fit the new ambiance. A new set of rules emerged. When ordering from the back seat of the car, do not cup your mouth over Daddy's ear and shout into it. Wait quietly until you are asked what you want. Follow this with, "Thank you." Never order more than you can balance between your knees. Remember, ice that spills between your legs dampens not only spirit, as it were. If by some chance you receive a sandwich that is not yours, do not spit on it and throw it on the floor. Simply pass it back to the driver of the car and tell him a mistake has been made. Front of the car seating is better than back seat if you have a choice. The dashboard offers space for holding beverages. However, these are reserved for parents who have seniority in the family. Conversation while dining in a car should be restricted to school happenings, future social events, and a polite exchange about non-controversial issues. It is quite improper to carry on a discourse as to what the secret sauce reminds you of. Eat with your legs together at all times. Unless the car windows are tinted, there should be no physical exchange between diners in the back seat. Remember, you are basically dining in public. That means no French fries hung from the nose. Very few diners will find this amusing. Despite the fact that facilities in the car are limited, there is no reason why it should be a major McMess. Afterward, each person should be responsible for his or her trash and should contain it in a bag. 2-week-old onion rings in the ashtray are not a pretty sight. Why did the home-cooked meal become extinct? Maybe because it deserved to die. I got to the point where I couldn't even get the family to the table at one time. When I announced dinner, the entire family swung into action like a precision drill team of Viennese lipizaners. For no apparent reason, my husband would exit to the bathroom with 2 volumes on Churchill. One child would pick up with the telephone and dial a random number. Another would grab a basketball and go outside to shoot baskets, and one of them would take a bus somewhere. When Donna Reed first invented the dinner hour, it was designed to be a gathering place for the family, where they would sit around and exchange pleasantries about the asparagus. Our family, when we got together, sounded like we were attending a lynching. The problem at family dinners is that no one can agree on what is considered to be a fit topic to discuss at dinner time. Children tend to talk about things that take away your interest in food and living. At one meal alone, I heard a description of the underside of the tongue, a rumor of what popular food contained rat's nostrils, what pureed peas remind you of when you look at them from a distance, and what happens to a dog's stool when he eats leftover chicken. Men prefer to talk about money. Within minutes, they can make you feel guilty for asking for seconds on the salt. They also take the opportunity to lay on the family their famous lectures on an E on the gas gauge does not mean evacuate. Don't reach out and touch somebody unless it's collect. And my all-time favorite, why do we have to straighten his teeth? He never smiles anyway. Personal note, I think I was subject to that one. Mothers use the togetherness of the meal to discuss the sins children committed in their diapers. No one ever amounted to anything who made a bed with a coat hanger. As a cook, I don't know how much longer I could have endured the eating habits of my family. I discovered the more teeth a kid had, the less he chewed. They never ate anything that was green, or was contained in a sack with their name on it. They never ate the same cereal twice, and believed in their hearts that the dog got better food than they did. Eventually, even my husband and I were seduced in the convenience of dining out. No wonder I loved it. I had never seen so many people in my life before. As we drove up to a restaurant with our friends, a valet opened our car door and said, "Hi, my name is Hal, and I'll park your car. Have a good dinner." I said, "Thank you, Hal. I'm Irma, and this is my husband, Bill, and our friends, Dick and Bernice." Inside, after we were seated, a young woman appeared and said, Good evening. My name is Wendy, and I'm your cocktail waitress. What can I get you this evening?" I introduced all of us again, and we ordered something from the bar. My husband leaned over and said, "So, Dick, what's happening?" A waiter brought a basket of bread to our table and said, "Good evening, folks. I'm Brick, and these are our special toasted garlic rounds with just a hint of Parmesan and fresh parsley. If you need more, yell. Enjoy." "Thanks, Brick," my husband said. "So, what's happening, Dick?" Another waiter appeared and said, "Hello, I'm Stud, and I'll be your waiter for this evening." Also, personal note, no server in the world ever called themselves a waiter. I'd like to interrupt for just a minute to tell you about our specials this evening. The chef has prepared ossobuco. This is made from knuckle of veal, garlic, chicken sauce, white wine, tomato paste, and anchovy fillets, finely chopped. The catch of the day is smoked cod's roe, which the chef makes into tura masalata, smothered with black olives, heavy cream, lemon, and olive oil. The soup of the day is everyone's favorite. Watercress and apple with just a pinch of curry. I'll give you a minute to decide. Numbly, we looked at one another. His monologue had lasted longer than most marriages. So, Dick, what's happening with you? My husband began again. Wendy reappeared and said, refills, anyone? We shook our heads. Stud followed her to the table and said, are we ready to order now? No sooner had Dick and Bernice agreed to share the salad than a table appeared, and Stud narrated the drama of the birth of a Caesar salad, like a midwife. Meanwhile, Frank the chef appeared with a naked fish, which he stuck under my nose for approval. Thank God I hadn't ordered the strangled duck. After the salad table came another table with flames leaping off it, and Stud electrified us with the commentary on sauce for the Moroccan meatballs. Arthur appeared with the key around his neck and a book that weighed 36 pounds and introduced himself as our wine steward. I introduced him to Bill, Dick, and Bernice. When the entrees were placed before us, no one dared touch his food until he had gone through the black pepper experience. Now, I don't pretend to understand when pepper got to be right up there behind frankincense and myrrh, but it is. That's when Stud came over to the table with a peppermill the size of a piano leg, the bigger the peppermill, the larger the check, and said, pepper? All the conversation came to a halt when we thought about what our answers would be when it came to us. I hesitated a moment and then said, yes, please. Stud watched my hand, waiting for me to orchestrate how much and the precise moment to stop. The weird part of all of this is that not one grain of pepper comes out of the mill. It's sort of like watching the first piece of luggage come off a carousel in airport luggage. Ever see anyone claim it? Of course you haven't. It's because it doesn't belong to anyone, that's why. As Britt cleared the table, Stud appeared with his dessert cart, and Wendy pouted openly when no one wanted a liqueur. I wanted coffee, but if we stayed any longer, I'd have been too old to lift the cup. We said goodbye to Hal, Wendy, Brick, Stud, Frank, and Arthur. We were exhausted. I suppose someday the home-cooked meal may return. When? Maybe when they come out with Phyllis Diller's fantasy, a stove that flushes. Who knows? As one of the kids rummaged in the refrigerator, he said, what's this? It's celery, and it's good for you. He said, if it's so great, how come it never danced on television? I couldn't answer him. Where did I fail? No one could accuse me of not trying to domesticate our children to feed and to care for themselves, but face it, they led sheltered lives under our roof. They never saw a naked chicken, never assisted at the birth of a casserole, or walked in unexpectedly and viewed the resuscitation of bread dough. The harder I tried to educate them, the more they regarded the kitchen as an adult community that did not accept children or pets. Their visits were limited to throwing open the freezer refrigerator doors and declaring, there's nothing to eat in this house. I cannot tell you the number of times I tried to lure them into the kitchen with teasers like, have you no curiosity as to how the cereal gets in the bowl? Or, come, stand on my side, and together we will just add water. Once, when I made my son watch as I mixed a Caesar salad, he looked at the oil, bits of garlic, lemon juice, Worcestershire sauce, Parmesan, and a raw egg floating in the bowl and just said, gross, and walked away. Take the kid in the utility room, pushing every button in sight. Did I not try to share with him my years of experience? You have to have patience for a sparkling wash, I told him. Wet is just not good enough. For 20 minutes once, I shared with him the ecstasy of burying your face in a stack of clean underwear. You'd have thought I was giving him instructions on how to fuel a nuclear war. He said he was against it and didn't want to bring his children into a world of bleach. Kids just have a different set of priorities for these lifestyles. Traditionally, when their parents got their first apartment, it looked like a stripped-down version of the home they just left. Today's generation is no different. If there are no plugs in the bathroom, they don't care. If the room isn't wired for heating, they don't care. If the front door doesn't close, they don't care. If there's a commune of bikers living next door, they don't care. If the stove doesn't work, they don't care. If there are 2 large walls that will hold the weight of their speakers, they'll rent it. I remember the first time we visited our son's apartment. I stood at the door numbly. It was minutes before I realized that I'd just handed my coat to a cockroach who hung it up on the curtain rod in the shower. My eyes scanned his room. A sofa with a single sheet and a blanket, a card table with 4 folding chairs, 2 cereal bowls, 3 spoons, a phone with a 50-foot cord, and a $4,000 stereo. I opened up his refrigerator door. On the first shelf was a container half full of yogurt. On the second shelf was a roll of film and a hardened lime. A doggy bag in the meat keeper was later identified as sweet and sour pork. How did it happen? I raised 3 children who never picked up anything but a fork. Somewhere between boiling the pacifier and buying black towels, I lost them. I don't know how or why, but I unleashed upon society 3 kids who think self-cleaning bathrooms have already been invented. What really frosts me is that it reflects on me. You have to believe me when I say they weren't raised that way. I use soap when I do dishes. I don't wear a shirt the 4th day by turning it wrong side out. I do not store slushy cups under the gas pedal. I do not sleep on pillows that have no cases on them, nor have I ever drunk milk out of a carton. Before every meal I used to ask, "Did you wash your hands and face?" In reply, a 24-inch tongue came out of their mouths and, like a street cleaner, made a path bordered on the north by a nose, east and west by cheeks, and on the south by a chin. A simple no would have done it. You're looking at a woman who, for years, declared all-out war on her children's bathrooms. I had to. Babysitters would demand medical benefits before coming to sit. I couldn't set a full table without visiting their rooms. A psychologist I admired said parents made too much of things and reacted too strongly. All I had to do was lay out a situation, then praise the child for it. For example, if a child left a book on the floor, all I had to say was, "There's a book on the floor." And he would arrive at the decision of what should be done with it. The child would be in control, not me. To test the theory, I put a book on the floor, and I said to the first child to arrive, "There is a book on the floor." He said, "I know. I nearly broke my neck tripping over it. Better pick it up." And disappeared. The second one came by, and when I told him of the book, he said, "You're real swift today." I got so disgusted, I didn't try it with a third one. Still, his turn came. One day after I viewed his bedroom, I thought I should give him the chance to redeem himself. When he asked me to go to a movie with him, I said, "I'd love to go to the movie with you, but I have to do all the work you didn't do today." There was genuine concern written all over his face. "How much more do you have to do?" he asked. "Well, there's all your dirty clothes all over the floor, your dirty dishes under the bed to take out, your bed to make, your trash to be disposed of, your wet towels to take to the laundry room, and your floor to be vacuumed." "Hey, Mom," he said, "I think I know where you're coming from. Why don't you just get up earlier tomorrow and do it?" The way he lived today shouldn't have been a surprise. After dinner, he said, "Don't bother with the dishes. I'll put them in the dishwasher." He said, "You don't have a dishwasher." He said, "Of course I do. It's under the stove." "That's an oven," I said. He shrugged and said, "No wonder the glasses have spots." My husband finally could keep quiet no longer. "What's with the roaches?" "You mean Stuart? I'm working with him to enter in the largest roach in America contest." "I've never seen one hang up a coat before," I conceded. "I don't know," said my husband. "You don't know anything about him. Suppose he used to travel with the German girls' Olympic swim team and had access to steroids. Or maybe he posed nude for National Geographic when he was younger and needed money," I said. "On the other hand," said his father, "he could walk off with Miss Congeniality and a donut endorsement." Our son looked at us. "Are you two putting me on because there's a prize of $1,000? That's different. said my husband. If you won, you could fog this whole place and claim your own bed again. We talked about it on the way home. Actually, the cockroach and our son had a lot in common. They both came out at night, ate cold fast food, and knew how to empty a room. Still, their relationship seemed unnatural. In retrospect, I learned a lot about kids on their own since the first one peeled off. You never drop in on them unless you have a nitroglycerin tablet ready to slip under your tongue. It is possible to maintain a rapport with them and still know where the dog eats and what a quart of milk is doing on the back of the commode. Just give them 4 to 6 weeks' notice before visiting. You never ask to see the $88 wool Afghan you brought them from Ireland unless you're prepared to see it after they washed it in hot water, tossed it in the dryer, and are now using it as a coaster. Resist the temptation to bring their apartment up to health standards. It will only cause you pain when you return in a few months and find everything as it was before you cleaned it. I know a lot of parents who get very discouraged. There is one thought that keeps me going. One of these days, they will have children of their own. Come to think of it, it's the only thing. So, thus endeth the 4th night of this 2nd week of Advent, although it's my first because I was late on the uptake. Thank you for letting me indulge myself. I will be reading Erma Bombeck through the end of the week, and then on Sunday, the 3rd week of Advent, I will resume reading The Little Prince, which I started last night. But thank you very much for being with me tonight, and I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Until then, please stay happy, and please stay healthy, and stay sane, and I will do the same.